आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वनिवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ अथाश्लायनो भगवन्तं परमेष्ठिनम् उपपसमेत्य उवाच अधीहि भगवो ब्रह्मविद्यां वरिष्ठां सदा सद्भिः सेव्यमानानां निगूढां यया चिरात् सर्वपापं व्यपोह्य परात् परं पुरुषं याति विद्वान्. So last week we saw that why should I gain this knowledge? We had gone up to that point. We had said that really speaking, the reason for gaining this knowledge is for our own sake. It is not for anybody else's sake. We have to see what is really the best thing for us. And we find what we looked at was that if you examine the various structures of your life, what really amounts to is a pleased self. A pleased self means that whatever we do, we are aiming to, every one of us, aiming to be happy without any conditions. We've talked about this many times before, but just to reiterate it. And so we are looking for a state of joy and happiness, but we are unsure as to what really is what is the way out, what is the way towards it. We're not sure of that. We can resort to some normal things that we can have access to, but a continuous, reliable source of joy is eluding us. We're not quite sure of it. So here the acharyas point out, the Shastra points out, that there is a shift that needs to take place in our understanding. This is the praptasya praptihi and so on. Excuse me. But a shift needs to take place. This really is a very key aspect of our search in life, I find. And we will discuss this in more detail as we go along. But just to summarize, why should I gain this knowledge? This is the point that I'm making, and which is this. There needs to be an important shift in the way I look at my life. And this is not possible without an external aid like this spiritual knowledge, light of the scriptures. Without that, it is not possible, just not possible. So what is that shift? The shift is as follows. It's a very important shift in the way we look at it. We fail to realize that the locus of happiness is me, is I. The locus of happiness, the place, locus meaning the place where it is found. The place where it is found is me. We fail to realize this. So what happens is, this is characterized by, you can characterize it by any number of words. So in our experience, the word that we have been using is aviveka, lack of discrimination. And another word to describe this phenomena of making a mistake is moha. So let's just look at that aspect of it for a second. So what tends to happen is that we are manipulating the conditions around our life in such a way that I have a pleased self. So a lot of things I do in my daily life, from first of all having food. So when you are hungry, there is a certain lack of something. Your body is giving you some signals of hunger. And that hunger translates into a state of the mind which says, I am not happy until I eat something. And then we can embellish it by saying not just any food, but tasty food. I will be only happy if I have taste. First of all, I should have food. Of course, if supposing I'm dying of hunger, if I'm starving, I think I was telling you this story. This is a very beautiful story. There was, this is a real life thing. There was a brother and sister, of kids of a friend of ours. He was telling us this story. So the younger brother was about 5 years old, and his sister was about 6 years old. No, more than that. Sorry, 7, 8, 9 years old. About 4 year difference. So 5 and 9. And this young kid kept telling his mother, "Mom, I'm starving." So he kept repeating that, "Mom, I want some food, I'm starving." So just imagine this 9-year-old, she wasn't much older than that, it was really 8 or 9, said, I forget the name of the kid, and he said, anyway, "Do you know you are not starving? You are just hungry. Starving are the people in poor African and Asian countries who do not get something to eat for several days." So you must have found that out from school, that actually does happen. You have all these pictures of extremely thin kids. They have absolutely no flesh on their body. And they are the real starving. So she was giving a lecture to this guy, saying, "You cannot say you are starving. That's not starving. All you are is hungry. And the starving means people that have not had food for several days." A 9-year-old talking to this. I thought that was just remarkable, honestly. So whatever words we choose, we tend to resort to a happiness by various means. One of them is making sure that I have food in my tummy. And then in addition to that, so this is where the artha, kama, dharma and moksha. So artha means enough things that I am surviving well. It's called artha. I have enough food, shelter, transportation, just the minimum requirements that I have to conduct my life. This is called artha. Then comes kama. Kama means that once I have satisfied my basic needs, now I want some fun. That's how the mind works. We are fun seekers. So then we have music, television, and all kinds of entertainment, visits to places. This all comes under kama. And what I find is that the kama gives me certain pleasures. Artha gives me certain pleasures. Then later stages of life, dharma comes in. Third stage. And there you find a sense of selflessness, of doing the right thing, of being ethical about things, helping others, also becomes a source of happiness. Okay, so these are the three things that artha, kama and dharma that are resorted to by me to gain a temporary self-fulfillment. I like that feeling of self-fulfillment, even though it is for a short time. You listen to some beautiful music and you feel good about it. You have good food, you feel good about it. You are helping others and you're doing something productive. You're a useful member of the society, you feel good about it. So this is the pleased self that we are always seeking. Okay? And the ingredients of the seeking of this type of self-fulfillment is kamana, desire. So you shape your mind in a form of desire. It expresses to you in the form of a desire. I want to do this. I need to do this. This is how you fulfill. Okay? Now, what happens so the characteristic of this way of leading our life is that until the desire is there in my mind, the fulfillment is not there. Is not there. I have the very presence of the desire denies me the fulfillment. But I find that if I resort to fulfilling the desire, that leads to self-fulfillment. So I keep desiring because I can tell that at the end of the rainbow of the desire, there is a pot of gold, so to speak. In other words, I feel good about it. So I keep on desiring. I keep on concatenating one desire after another in my life so that I can sense a feeling of fulfillment, even if it is temporary. I can't really find any fulfillment that lasts for a long time. No one has really found that out. And so all I do is I just concatenate. I string together a series of events. This is what I call manipulation. I manipulate things so that I'm comfortable and I'm always looking for something which gives me a fulfillment, even if it is for a short time. That's what my life is all about. So the switch that I talked about earlier, which is characterized by the words aviveka or moha, both those words are most applicable in defining this problem. And the switch is this. Through the teaching of the scriptures, followed by your personal experience, you come to discover that there is a very interesting phenomena going on. And that phenomena is instead of the locus of joy and the locus of fulfillment being external to me, which is the way my life appears at the moment. How? Because when I acquire something, when I do something and my desire is fulfilled, it gives me fulfillment, self-fulfillment, happiness, whatever you may call it. This is the way things are. So therefore, I find a erroneously concluded source of happiness external to me. So what I find is that my happiness is cut up and it's lying around in my life at various places, as though. That's our experience. And so therefore, for instance, just to oversimplify this and so on, you are unhappy and you open the refrigerator and you eat something sweet. And you feel happy, you feel fulfilled. So that means a piece of your joy is in the refrigerator in the form of some sweet. You talk to some friend who is very understandable and forgiving to you. That's how the person a friend is. A friend is defined by someone who likes you for how you are. And so if you're feeling lonely or uncomfortable or disturbed in your life for any reason and so on, then calling up the friend, lightening up your heart, lighting up your heart, making it lighter, gives you joy. So you like the friend. So the friend also becomes a source of joy. Food becomes a fruit of... So what I'm saying is that you find that there is joy which is cut up into pieces and you seem to want to join them as much as possible because you have concluded that I am not a happy person at the moment, but if I did this, and this, then I'll be very happy. Not altogether. You can say, I do this. After that, then after you've eaten, then you've got to do something else. And so this is what my life is all about. Now comes the switch, which is an important switch, as I mentioned before. That switch is a viveka, just the opposite of aviveka, a discrimination. And so a lack of moha. And this comes slowly, by the way, does not suddenly occur. The understanding of that may be sudden, but the experience of that is gradual. And that is my seeking for things outside of me is fraught with problems. What I begin to understand is that I am denying my own innate happiness. And I'm denying it by creating a desire which has not been inquired into. I just adopt the desire without thinking, which blocks my idea of where I am, who I am, and my happiness. All of that is blocked from me. You see, the fact that I am the very locus of happiness is blocked from me. And so I go outside as though it is outside of me. So then what is the switch that you're talking about, and what do we do about it? What you discover, what you need to discover, what you should discover, what you will discover is that I am in self-denial. I'm in self-denial And that, really speaking, I don't need external things to be fulfilled. You begin to see that my nature, which peeps its head out from time to time, but I ignore it. I ignore it because of aviveka and moha. So it sticks its neck out and said, "You are okay. You are okay." But I'm not sensitive to those signals. No, I squash it. And so the switch that needs to happen is, my God, is it true? Is it true that the sense of satisfaction that I'm seeking is me itself? And you now have to test it in your life. And how do you test it? What do you do to make this into a real? So this something that kind of comes and goes, and you're not sure whether this is for real. To make it real, what do? You reduce your sense of desires for outside things. Simultaneously with the discovery that I'm okay. If you don't do it simultaneously, together at least, very close together, if you don't do it, then what happens is all you do is miss the signal that you are okay. So there's a kind of like a push-pull phenomena that has to take place. You reduce your externality, but you replace it with a conscious internality. And at first it appears, really? This is amazing. Can this be true? It is actually very true. But you denied it. You were not willing to explore. You just ignored it and denied it. And an unexplored, denied self-examination results in your continued rejection about your self-satisfaction. So the symptoms are very obvious. You feel bored with yourself. I need to do something. I need company. And in fact, the fact of the matter is, really speaking, that the company that you are hankering for is denying you the chance to examine you are not just a bored, empty, lonely person that needs to be explored with the help of the Shastra. And if you don't do that, in other words, if you don't replace, if you just withhold your desires and you don't explore your own content of yourself as to who you are, then you will resort back to saying that doesn't work. So you go back to then making desires as a functional part of your life, as we normally do. But the switch that should occur, and it is a very important switch, and this can be seen in, this can be described in various ways. One of the ways that this is now just a description, I'm just giving you a phenomena first, but the description about that is, so you are a samsari. So the word samsari is used. So samsari means one who is totally devoted to the external things to give you pieces of happiness. Very unreliable, unpredictable, and upon further examination just does not work. But I don't know what else to do because there's no one else that has a better answer than that. And I keep doing it, just figuring out as much as I can. Until when a Shastra comes in, the teaching, the right kind of thinking, saying, wait, no. In fact, you are doing it exactly the opposite of what you should. You are okay as a person, but you say, but I don't feel okay as a person. I need food, I need external things, I need kama, artha kama. Shastra says, I know, it appears like that. But this is a moha, this is aviveka. If you just slowly let, so this is what is called samsari is outside. The other one is the discovery of Ishwara as your own self. And so whenever we say discovery of Ishwara, you immediately block that off. Ishwara means God. You immediately block that off and says, no, I cannot be God. I don't want to be God. I want to know God, but I don't want to be God. Okay, I'm not saying that you want to be the ruler of the world. It's not possible. Don't think I'm that foolish. Shastra is saying. The Shastra says, when you say that I am God, you don't mean the functioning Ishwara who is the beholder, the holder, the adhara of the entire creation. That's not what I mean. But what we mean is that the essence of Ishwara, you see, the essence of Ishwara is reliability, satyam, total happiness, independence. That Swarupa of Ishvara, you are. You are also timeless. You are also immortal like Ishvara. You are also independent. And your total knowledge. Total. When you say total, that means there is no mixture between knowledge and ignorance. There's no mix-up of them. It's total knowledge. Similarly, total satyam, total anantam, So that you will see slowly. And you cannot see that until you have to see that switch. Give yourself a chance to do that switch. This is this is a very beautiful thing that the Shastra points out. He says, there is a difference between what is moha and between bodha or knowledge. So the moha is that from a very cursory examination, it appears to be true from a distance. But the more you go closer to it, it does not hold its original view to you. Its view keeps on changing. Very much like, if you have something which appears to be true from a distance, but if you go closer with clear eyes, you find, no, that's not, I've made a mistake. So the characteristic of something which is not true is that it appears to be true when it is unexamined. The opposite is true for something which is real but you have not examined it yet. So the more you go closer to it, the more you resort to it, the more real it gets. This is the opposite viewpoint. One is that from a distance it looks true, but on further examination it disappears or changes. And the other one is from a distance it does not look very true. But if you examine it closer and closer, pardon me, it becomes true. So this is the thing about the switch, that the entire world looks very real and promising and the source of joy for me. It appears like that. So samsara has a certain way of attracting me. And Ishwara is there, Brahman is there, silently sitting there as nothing but your own Swarupa, waiting for you to discover it, but it doesn't know how to raise its hand other than your own thinking. There is nothing else that you can do. But the fact of the matter is that if you make that switch in your life and start to discover the completeness that you already have, and the way to do that is to reduce the interference from outside. Outside meaning your dependence on the outside. And so this leads us to the discussion. I mean, all this was just a kind of like a build-up to it, really. Leads us to this discussion on the last part of the first verse. Right? So the last part of the first verse which is in the section Approaching the Teacher, the very first verse. So we did already Atha Ashvalayanaha Bhagavantam Parameshtinam Upapasametya Vacha Adihi Bhagavo Brahma Vidyam Varishtam Sada Sadbihi Sevyamana Nam Nigudham. We did all that. Now it leads us to Yaya Achirat Sarva Papam Vyapohya Parat Param Purusham Yati Vidwan. So, this is the topic that begins at the bottom of page number 52 by the subheading by Swamiji, which is what is evil and how does the knowledge destroy evil? Beautiful section. Very nicely done. And that's exactly what I was driving to in all this last few minutes. So he says, Yaya. So Yaya means by which. So what is it referring to? It's referring to Brahma Vidyam. That's the noun, that is the key one which is underlying. Viveka. So he says that he approached him for Brahma Vidya, for the knowledge of Brahman, the knowledge of the Atma, the knowledge of Parameshwara, knowledge of Paramatma, all the same thing. Brahman, Parameshwara, Paramatma, Atma, it's all the same vastu, with different names, different aspects of it. So that is the Brahma Vidyam, by which Yaya Achirat, before long. Achirat means, what it means is it can be instantaneous. Time is only there until you become eligible to understand. I think the example of E is equal to mc square is a very good one. Because you build up your understanding of energy and mass and all the physics of it and so on. And when this equation is presented to you, you're done. Now you see the very beauty of this Einsteinian equation, that nothing is lost. This is really a kind of like a subversion of Vedanta in that sense. That really speaking, not nearly as complete in its understanding, but certain parts of it represent the wisdom of Vedanta, which is that really speaking, energy and mass are always there in one form or the other. Nothing is lost. Nothing is lost. And so once the build-up to that is there, you now become knowledgeable about the truth of it instantly. So that comes from the word Shraddha that we will take up. Hopefully we'll have time to look into that. Anyway, to go back to this, Yaya Achirat. So Achirat, what I meant to say was, it's not a process that's going to take many lives. Totally depends on your own eligibility. You improve your thinking and so on, and you get it right away. Achirat. Sarva papam vibhokya. So papam here means wrong actions. What is epitomized by the word evil. So, so this is, we don't use the word sin. He's a sinner. The sin of S-I-N, is just not in the vocabulary of Vedantins. But the word papam is. Papam and punyam, two opposites. And papam can be equated to evil. Evil in the sense, the right way to understand that is wrong actions, not correct, inconsistent with what the human being's nature is called evil. And punyam means the opposite of that, where you do the right kind of actions. So one interesting sidelight to this, which which probably is a bit too advanced for now, but we can talk about it, that both punyam and papam have to be rejected. How? Because papam is very easy to understand, should be rejected. Why? Because what the nature of papa is, it will give you pain at some point in time. You will suffer because of that. It's called papam. So the karma phala for papam is not good. Anything which is not good. Anytime we have some problems in life, physical problems, falling down, breaking our bones, this, that or the other, this is the result of some papam in the past. And punyam is just the opposite. Whenever you have something which is pleasant and a very good experience, and particularly unexpected results that you were not even thinking of, is the result of punyam. So the papam should definitely be rejected. But how come punyam should be rejected? So in Vedanta it says the punyam also needs to be rejected. Rejected means in the sense that you should see the limitations of both of them. Papam is easy to see, that anytime you do some bad things, then you should expect that bad things are going to come back to you. Right? You should expect that. It's a question of people finding out, and sooner or later you'll have to pay for it. That's obvious. But what about punyam? Why can't I just do punyam? The reason that punyam also needs to be given up is because when the good results come, you are not forced to, but you are liable to revel in its enjoyment as an external source. Again, it prevents you from introspection as to who you really are. All the things we talked about, that switch that we talked about, it prevents you from doing it. You are busy enjoying. You don't believe it? Try teaching scriptures to people who are highly successful. Last night it was interesting. My wife and I were invited to a social event from a friend of ours, and I don't know how we were included in that. Really, all the 15, 20 people, couples there were highly accomplished people, CEOs, and there was the CFO of this person, CEO of that. He's opened some companies, and they're all just enjoying themselves and having fun, and very wonderful to see. I haven't done any of that. I was just a simple engineer and did some things with a couple of companies, and fed the family, fed myself. It was happy and so on, but nothing like these people. If you utter a word of Vedanta in the midst of it, In fact, it was a big problem because they don't know this, they all recognize each other as highly accomplished business people. These are all business people. And some of them were highly placed people in companies. But here comes this guy that they have seen me, but they are unsure as to where to place me. Who is he? Why is he in the midst of these CEOs and so on? Because I've never heard of him. So they would very politely ask and say, "Oh, how are you? What are you doing these days?" So what do I tell them? If I talk about saying that I teach Vedanta, would you like to hear some of it? Not going to happen. I'm wise enough not to even broach the subject. So I make some up and say, I met some very wise people, and I decided to go into an explanation of our, and these are all generally were all Hindus, so they are not. They weren't, I think, except for one or two Westerners, they were all Indians and Hindus, not Muslims. And so they should be aware of what I'm doing, but I don't want to really flaunt it because it doesn't mean anything to them. And I don't want to really give any bad feelings to Vedanta. So I said, I talk about philosophies, I've gotten into philosophy and this, that, or the other. Just mumble jumble it and so on so that it's enough to kind of quieten them down. Anyway, what I'm saying is, this is all in relation to punyam. These people have done a lot of punyam in the past. And they are all multimillionaires. Some of them are billionaires. And all the money and so on and so forth, you cannot really ask them to study Vedanta. Not possible. It's interesting. This is why I feel that sometimes problems in your life can be extremely useful in turning inwards about yourself. So there was a story that Swami Maheshananji was presenting. This is a kind of an extreme story, but a very beautiful, interesting one. Just see, and it's a real life story. Okay, just to make this point. So in the year 1340, this is a real life story. There was a young girl born in Kashmir. What's her name? Her name was Lallibai or something like that. I forget her name. Anyway, she was born in Kashmir, and Kashmir is now, of course, due to so many idiotic things that have been happening, has become such a terrible place now. But it was the place for Vedantic study, and Shivaratri and Shiva Mandirs and so on were all over Kashmir. In fact, all over Afghanistan for that matter. So Gandharva Nagar now is called Kandara. And that was Takshila, that was the very seat of learning of Hinduism. Things have become so deteriorated, and hopefully it'll be okay after another 100 years. I don't know, who knows, we'll see. But anyway, going back to the story, there was this girl who was married off at the age of 12. This is how the story goes. And unfortunately, she went into a house where her mother-in-law was not the real mother of this young boy that she got married to. So she was um, a second marriage or something. And she became very jealous of this young girl who was of a very good nature and started abusing her in one form or the other. So much so that at one time, sick of all this, she left home. After a few years, I don't know how old she was, maybe 18, 19 or something. So she left home and started wandering in the forest and looking for God, saying, God, you've created me, but you've given me so many problems, and you've got to be there somewhere. And she started reading all about Shiva and in temples and so on. And pretty soon, she actually was able to, with her bhakti, get a feeling that I'm okay. And she was really intoxicated by the fact that it was that there is Ishwara in my life and I am okay the way I am. So that switch took place in her. Even though she was not taught in Vedanta. So the story goes, she became kind of like, they say, Swami Mahesharanji points out, he says that if you look at people who get intoxicated due to alcohol or some other drug, they lose their sense of being clothed properly. Their clothes fall off. Their blouses are torn. And they're intoxicated. They are unaware of it. Similarly happened to this lady. She was intoxicated by the love of God. So much so that she just didn't know whether she was clothed or not. And she would be running around naked many times. And people would make fun of her and say, what are you doing? But she didn't care. She was just happy the way it was. But she did not have the complete knowledge of the Atma. As the story goes, in a temple in southern India, there was a Mahatma who was a Vedantic teacher and very clear about the whole thing. One day, Ishwara put the thought in his mind, you need to go to Kashmir, seek out this young girl and teach her. And he did. He did. And so he gave up, this is the story, this in those days, in year 1300, to travel from South India to all the way up to Kashmir, it'll probably take him 4 months. How's he going to go? There's no railroads. He has to go by, I don't know, no cycles or anything, by bullock carts. But he went because he had an idea. And they say that in his mind it was given by Ishwara. You have to go and teach. Because without teaching, bhakti doesn't mean anything. You have to know jnana. This woman had bhakti but did not have jnana. So he traveled all the way up to Kashmir and educated her, and she became free. And so this is the story of that. Anyway, what I'm saying is that had it not been for the fact that she was abused by her stepmother, really mistreated by her, she would not have found that treasure inside of her. And so in that sense, you can say that punyam is not useful. Why? Because as long as the results of punyam are externality, you're never going to find it. So I think the one lesson that we have is that whenever we find some problems in our life that are very intractable, very formidable, not just casual, not just a small problem, but something which really vexes us, this is Ishwara calling and saying, please turn inwards. I am there for you. Discover me. So anyway, that's the story about the punyam and papam. So anyway, going back to this, he says, Yaya achirat sarva papam vyapohya parat param purusham yati vidwan. So here, this is a very good discussion on page 52 by Swamiji about what is evil. So what do you mean by evil? So this is called papi or papa. Papa can be called evil. So the Sanskrit word called papi, the one who does evil things. You know, you like these terrorists, clearly evil because they kill people. Just a couple of days ago, in fact, this has been happening more and more. The terrorists in Kashmir, again going back to coincidentally to Kashmir, they are now, their structures have been decimated. But now what's happening is that they are killing off individuals one by one. And so they get these pistols from Pakistan through drones. I've been following the story. So the drones are dropping pistols, modern pistols, for these people. And so individually, they go to someone. This just happened. There was a Kashmiri Pandit who was, I think, a pharmacist. Just walked up to him and put 4 bullets to him. He died. There was another Sikh president of a college. They killed him. So there's about 25, 26 people that have killed this year. So they're just 2 individual ones. So they are purely terrorists. They are papis, evils. Why do they do that? This is an important question. And so we will end the class with just a discussion of what is evil. What's the reason for it? If you say that it's the same Atma everywhere, there is only a single Atma. Paramatma is the same consciousness in every place. How is it that one person is evil and the other person is not? What makes that person an evil person? So that is given very nicely here by Swami Viditatmananda. This is a very important thing to understand. The root cause of evil is self-ignorance. This is something we have to really think about. What? Self-ignorance? How? Yes, it is true. In fact, I think we have often said this in many other classes also, that the prapancha, the variegation of life, the very expression of things in the whole life is due to ignorance. What really keeps people uh, from understanding is self-ignorance. Self-ignorance of what? Self-ignorance of the fact that you are the whole, you are secure, you are loving, you are full of ananda, you're full of sukham, you're full of happiness. You're the very nature of happiness. That part is not known. So, if it is not known, if it is misunderstood, then the opposite conclusions come in. Instead of saying that I am the most secure thing there is in the whole creation, I become very insecure. Instead of knowing that I am the most independent entity in the whole world, I become highly dependent. Instead of knowing that I am the very nature of unlimitedness, I become very limited. And I don't like it. I don't like to be limited. I don't like to be insecure. And now I become unpredictable on how I'm going to get my security. And so, the terrorists find that perhaps, then you have the wrong kind of teaching that is given to them, which is another problem altogether. So the terrorists, for example, I'm just looking out the Muslim credo. They are told that if you kill a non-believer, then you will go to heaven, and God will take care of you. So believe in God, and anybody you find who is a non-believer, kill them, because your results will be given in heaven and you will be very happy. So even if you get killed in the process, doesn't matter. You'll have a happy afterlife. It's a completely wrong thing to do. God cannot condone killing as a sadhana. How is that possible? Don't you see that it has to be consistent? Both the means and the ends have to be consistent. You cannot create love out of hatred. But they are taught and they accept it because of self-ignorance. They become wild. So here, I think Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, I don't blame any of the individual terrorists. It is the ideology which has to be corrected. And we all know that by now, but anyway. So this is the thing that we need to understand, that at the bottom of all of our problems of externality and then the extreme form of that, which is papam. Most of us are wrong, but we keep quiet about it, and we keep seeking things in a quieter way. But once in a while, when my ignorance becomes unbearable, then I resort to something which is violence and so on. And so what is said is that the world actually gives you an opportunity to wrongly express your ignorance about yourself. So this is what is normally given as the 2 steps of making a mistake. So the word mistake can be broken up into miss and take. And so the miss is you don't know, which is called avaranam. And the taking of it, so you see, so if you look at our traditional example of taking a rope for a snake, you don't see the rope for what it is, so this is called avaranam. This is the miss. But then, if it is complete darkness, you would not take it to be a snake. So that's the take part of it. This is called vikshepa. So one is avarana, the other one is vikshepa. So this is exactly what happens in our life, is that the world provides you with a way to transform your self-ignorance into wrong action. Seeking of pleasure outside of you. It seems to attract us. And so that is the essence of self-ignorance. So now we can summarize to say that the root cause of all problems in our life is self-ignorance. If you knew who you really are, you would never do papa. You will be the happy, and in down below, all of us are exactly like that. But not knowing oneself to be like that, making a mistake about oneself to be like that, you resort to so much activity, and some of it is violent. So this is the meaning of this sentence. Yaya achirat sarva papam vyapohya. All kinds of evil. Parat param purusham yati vidwan. That I resort to become a Purusha. I resort for being a Purusha. This word Purusha, so I'll end the class with that. It's a very interesting one. We should understand that. Just look at this part of it. So, Purusha has one of two etymological derivatives, how it came about. So one is the word, the dhatu called pra. And the pra is to fill up, to make it substantive. So from there comes Purusha, which is Brahman, which is Paramatma. Okay, so this is one aspect of it. And both are synergistic. The other one is the one that dwells in any form of a body. The very consciousness which is dwelling in a body, which expresses itself in a body, is called Purusha. That is called Jivatma. So the first one can be taken as Paramatma, the one from filling up, and the other one is the one who's close to the body, is the Jivatma. But both are the same pretty much. Okay? So this word Purusha is an important one. So what it means is that anyone who is living in the expression outside, the form, is not a Purusha. It is a non-Purusha. It's called a Stri, a woman in Nikkei. So the word man and woman in this context does not refer to the gender, the body makeup. That's not what it is, the Vedantic view is. The view is that the Purusha is the one who knows the Atma, and non-Purusha is the one that does not know the Atma. One who's dwelling, so one whose externality is a Stri, and one whose internality is the Purusha. And this is true for man or a woman. In fact, it's very interesting in this story about, remember I was telling you about this 14th century story in Kashmir. So Swami Maheshananji, it just happened to, we're talking about the same thing. Swami Maheshananji was saying that this woman, when she was wandering around half naked in the forests and so on and so forth, people will make fun of her. And they will ask her, why don't you clothe yourself properly? Why is it that you are just half naked all the time? This is not becoming of a woman. And you know what she said? She said to people, I will only clothe myself when I see a Purusha. None of you are Purushas. You are all women as far as I'm concerned. The same thing in this, if you look at the Dakshinamurti Stotra, I think we have already studied that. Stri Balanda Jada Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Mahavyamoha Samharine Stri Balanda Jadopama Swamiti Bhranta Brisam Vadinaha. The word Stri is used, means a woman. So here the woman doesn't mean a gender woman, but it means someone who is so involved in just useless things of externality. That's the word the Stri means. So that same thing was given in this example of this Kashmiri girl. She said, just like, supposing you have there's a gym and there's a woman's washroom and a men's washroom. And the women can all be moving around naked without any, but if a man comes in, they would immediately put some clothes on. But amongst women, they have absolutely no reservation. So this lady from Kashmir said, I am naked because all of you are all women. You don't know the Atma. So I have no sense of shame. But when this Swami came from South India, she could recognize that he is a Purusha. She put her clothes on. It's all given in the story. I'm not making it up. And to say one last example, completely separate example. These are all real life examples. So it appears there was a Swami who used to live in a small ashram, and one lady sannyasi, woman sannyasi, wanted to meet with him. So she came all the way and she knocked on the door. So one of the brahmacharis who was taking care of the small ashram said, yes, may I help you? So she said, I want to talk to the Mahatma, and I've heard a lot about him and I want to do his darshan. So he said, okay, please wait here, I'll be right back. Let me go talk to him. So then after a while, he talked to the Mahatma and said, Mahatma ji, there is a lady coming here to meet with you. Would you like to please come out? He says, no. I don't want to be in touch with any ladies. My life is now changed. I'm a sannyasi, and no, I do not mix with any women anymore. So please tell her to go away. So the brahmachari came back and said, Madam, I'm very sorry, but this is what he said. So she said, I'm very happy you told me that, because I had come to the wrong person. I did not know that he has such body identification that he is separating a man from a woman. I made a mistake. Even if he wants to meet with me, I don't want to meet with him. Thank you. Goodbye. And she went, this is a real life story. This happened. This is true. So Adi Shankara also, remember, in the, was says, Chandaloham, Dvijoham, to whoever you are my guru. Doesn't make any difference what body it is in. Anyway, so that's the explanation of the Purusha, the word Purusha, that on this. So with this, I think the first verse is now complete. So what I would like to request you is to please finish. I may have said that even last time, I don't remember. But in any case, if you have not finished doing that, kindly read up all the way up from 52 to 57. And we are now done with the first verse, and next week we will start with the second verse. Okay, so with that, let me close the class. Om asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. All right. So backwards, I think you're right. I think it is that's to the last story is about Mirabai. That's exactly right. Yes, very much so. So Virendra Singh, I think the questions that you have about how do we get used to and comfortable with the belief in Naham Jiva Brahma Eva Asman. I think it is just you just have to convince your mind will be. Our minds are all very rational. We only believe in some things that we see the truth of it. And so for one to get rid of that notion, that's what I call it, notion. The word notion means it's not the truth, but a sort of a sense of a truth, is to convince the mind otherwise through examples. It's not a simple process. You have to go through a thorough study and convince your mind that this is in fact the truth, and slowly the mind will become educated. So it's not a simple step that you can immediately get comfortable or anything like that. It just grows gradually. So that's how one has to do. Then your question about the wrong, evil, terrorist-inspired Ishwara. So it's the possibility of doing good or bad are in all the creation. So it's not as though the Ishwara is inspiring people to do that. That's not this issue. There is a possibility of doing evil and good, and that's up to people to take up. And so there is karma and karma phala in either one. So there is good and bad actions, and you have to just go through that, but it's temporary. It's not permanent. That's the one thing that Hinduism does not believe in, that any kind of an evil will lead you into permanent hell. No. All karma phala is temporary, but you should see that you are okay the way you are. If you don't see it, then you may get into a problem. So that's all. There's not an inspiration from the God. Has nothing to do with this. He provides all of the samagri for doing good or bad. That's all. Lichi, I'm impressed that you know about Mirabai. That's wonderful. All right, if there's no other questions, then I take your leave and we will see you next week. Om.